Sex workers are calling on the president to include them as an essential service during lockdown. To discuss this now, I'm joined via Skype by Lesego Twale from the Sex Workers Education and Advocacy Task Force. That's Sweat for Sure, as it's better known. Lesego, good morning to you. Just explain your rationale. Why do you want to be considered an essential service at this time?
I mean, as we all know, that sex work is one of the oldest professions in the world. And with us being sex work activists, we consider this work, which is providing for families and for the workers. So for us, at this point, sex workers are the hardest hit at this point because of the nature of the work they do. It requires physical contact. And with the national lockdown enforced, it means that there's no contact that sex workers can do with the clients or ways of making money in this during this pandemic. So we're saying to the government, while you're looking at assisting and aiding other workers during this time, also think of sex workers who are also hardest hit, who also are losing income due to this pandemic. So we're saying to the government, yes.
How do you propose that should happen? From what I know, correct me if I'm wrong, most sex workers are not registered as employees.
Yes, and that is the problem we're having right now, because as SWET, as you might know, we have been fighting for the decriminalization of sex work for over 20 years now. And for that mere fact, if sex work was decriminalized, sex work would be considered work and they would enjoy labor rights as every other South African in the country. So we're saying that sex work needs to be decriminalized so that in times like these, they can also be able to go and claim for UIF, go and claim for the temporary relief scheme that the president is speaking about. But because currently sex work is criminalized, they can't do that, right? They are left in the margins, they are left in the dark, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, now, well, the status quo is that it is not decriminalized. You are now saying as SWET, you'd like the president to consider including sex workers in one way or another. Exactly what form could that take? What kind of support are you looking to the president to give?
I mean, for now, I mean, I know the president has spoken about relieving casual workers, getting some sort of relief through maybe their companies or whatever. But we're saying if then the president decides to do something, there could be instances like how the grant system works, where sex workers can then go and receive some sort of grant payment for this period while they don't have jobs, you know. I mean, and this I know would come with some kind of dangers, because with the criminalization, you can be arrested for being a sex worker. So it means then sex workers have to say, I'm a sex worker, and then that can risk them getting arrested. But we're saying the government needs to see that this is a situation which is a disaster, and they need to be lenient a bit with the police to say, how can we in this month work with sex workers to make sure that they also are covered under this situation, but also moving forward, making sure that we give them rights that will allow them to access services like any other South African.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing, Lesego, is the following, is that under the circumstances, because sex work in South Africa is still a criminal offense, with a lockdown where nobody is supposed to go out of their homes unless it's essential, you are asking for the sex workers to be considered in one way or another in terms of financial support. Now, how do you get that financial support to somebody who's not registered in any way? How can they go into a place and say, hi, I'm a sex worker? How is that going to be viewed as legit? I'm just trying to be practical for a while. That's one aspect. The second aspect which you are raising is something for the future, that you are still asking as SWET for sex work to be decriminalized. I don't think that's going to be addressed at this point. But just going back to practically now, how could a sex worker be assisted when they are not registered? It's not a recognized profession, it's a criminal offense.
Yeah, and we do get that. We do get that on when you look at it on a practical level, it doesn't seem like it will work. But I feel like if we try, it will work, because we have organizations such as SWET, such as Sisonke, which is the National Movement of Sex Workers, which have a membership base that we know of, that we have on record, that we can vouch for to say these people are sex workers because they access our services, they are members of the...
Okay, so your suggestion could be that organizations, an agency like yours, Sweat, and the others you've mentioned, could be used as vehicles, therefore, to allocate, distribute any amount of financial help that the President could give?
Correct, yes. Because we've been there, we're existing, and we're legitimate organizations. It could work as a type of a funding that will go out there to sex workers to say this funding is allocated for sex workers. Similar to any other funding, where it's GBV, where it's HIV, we can make this funding available for sex workers. Then organizations such as ours can manage it, and we can be accountable for, because we know, like as you know, that in the recent studies that we did, we have about 158,000 sex workers in South Africa. So you can just imagine that out of that, majority of which are female find themselves in a predicament, and their dependents also, meaning that they won't have any means of living in this time.
Okay, finally, while I have you, now that you've clarified how you think practically it could work, have you knocked on the right doors? Have you sent your plea to social development, to health, to the presidency? How are they receiving it, if you have?
I mean, we're receiving some funding from the Department of Health, obviously, to do health outreaches and stuff. But we've been in conversation with them to say, since at this time we can't conduct any health outreaches to sex workers, can we redirect the funding that we get from you to aid sex workers in terms of grocery vouchers or other things, the necessities that they might need? And these are conversations that we're having, an ongoing conversation with other funders as well that fund the work that we do, so that we can redirect the money, but also looking into government, because these other fundings are project specific. So looking into government to do a special grant that would then aid sex workers at this time.
Thank you very much, Lesego, there from Sweat, that's calling for some kind of financial support at this time for sex workers. Now,